Come on, Bau-kun, we're almost there. Hurry up! The pace of her footsteps steadily increasing, the blue-haired girl almost broke into a sprint out of sheer excitement, while the kingfisher quietly flying above her head silently observed the landscape ahead of them. The name of the girl in high spirits was Fuyumi, and her blue hair with a touch of orange was not the only thing special about her. While she certainly looked like a human girl, albeit a somewhat peculiar one, she was actually a kingfisher from a special lineage. However, due to her own mishap, she had lost most of her feathers during her transformation into a human. Stuck in her human form and unable to return home, she was now on a tour throughout the world with the goal of retrieving her lost feathers. The bird accompanying her was her brother Bau-kun, short for Baumkuchen, who unlike her had not touched the necklace, which allowed a kingfisher to turn human. As for the cause of Fuyumi's excitement, one might assume that she was following a lead regarding the whereabouts of her feathers and getting close. However, the actual reason was something entirely different. The pair was currently traveling through the Fujigoko area north of Japan's Mount Fuji and en route to the Shiba Sakura Festival. There, Fuyumi was looking forward to seeing the famous pink hills filled with the name-giving Shiba Sakura flowers. And we're finally here? Fuyumi's energetic voice dropped several levels as she witnessed the sight that unfolded before her eyes. The hills that lay before them were indeed full of flowers, but they hardly had any pink petals attached to them. Thus, most of the area looked just like a regular green meadow you could find anywhere else. How unlucky are we? Sulked the blue girl as she came to an abrupt halt. Well, they did say that there was a storm last week. But for it to affect even the festival, humans sure have it hard in this world, huh? Replied her brother. Yeah, but as they say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Cheering herself up, Fuyumi dug out a photo camera from her backpack. Alright, time for some pictures. With that, she started to walk here and there, constantly searching for good spots to photograph. Bau-kun tried to talk to her, but as usual, his sister became so absorbed in taking pictures that she basically didn't hear anything he was saying. Eventually, he begrudgingly gave up and just silently watched her fumble with the camera. After some time had passed, the kingfisher girl finally felt satisfied with the photos she had taken. Alright, let's go to the next place. With that exclamation, she started to leave, her mind already occupied by the next location she had planned on visiting. Bau-kun let out a sigh and murmured, How about less sightseeing and more feather searching? But as his sister was already too far away to hear her smuttering, his complaint remained unnoticed. The bus ride to their next destination was rather quiet, but that was to be expected. Traveling with a bird on your shoulder was already unusual enough to draw a glance or two from people. But having a girl talk to a bird on a bus filled with people would have definitely been too much. That much was clear to the pair. Still, seeing his sister continuing to play around with the camera, even during the ride, somewhat annoyed Bau-kun. While she could not talk to him, he could have screeched and nagged at her as much as he would have liked to, considering that nobody else would have understood him. Even so, he kept it in, and instead tried to preserve his strength for the other locations they would visit today. After a quick pit stop to grab some lunch, the next place they arrived at was Oshino Hakai, a popular tourist spot, famous for its name-giving 8 spring water ponds. Initially, Bau-kun had dismissed the idea of coming here, since a bunch of ponds didn't sound particularly exciting. However, seeing them with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be taken in by the crystal clear water. Due to the clarity of the water, you could even clearly see lots of yellow and black koi fishes swimming in it. Fuyumi seemed to be similarly amazed, since both her eyes and her mouth widened substantially upon witnessing the sight in front of her. "Fu!" called Bau-kun out, as he watched his sister kneel down to get her face closer to the water surface. What is it?" came her reply without shifting the focus of her gaze. "Remember, don't eat the fish here." Hearing this, Fuyumi turned her head to shoot her brother a piercing glance while her cheeks puffed up sulkingly. "I know that much! Who do you take me for?" Just as the bird was about to give a teasing answer, he noticed that his sister had taken out the camera again and was busy capturing the scenery. Thus, he once again began to wait for her to wrap things up. Otherwise, she would be too engrossed in photography to do anything else. Flying here and there while keeping an eye on Fuyumi, Bau-kun eventually grew tired of waiting. After all, it was no fun to silently stroll around by yourself, especially if you had a traveling partner right there. Pondering what to do, he absent-mindedly surveyed their surroundings. That's when he suddenly noticed something blue and orange stuck between the leaves of one tree. This couldn't be, or could it? Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be one of Fuyumi's feathers. Excited, Bau-kun grabbed the feather and searched for his sister. "Hey Fu! Look what I found!" However, the person in question hardly took notice of him, while looking through the viewfinder and dismissively replied, "Not now, Bau-kun." Dejected, Bau-kun decided that it was time to play a little prank on his jumpy sister. Hiding the feather among his own, he slowly approached her as she was crouching beside one of the ponds to take pictures of the koi inside the water. Just as he landed on her back, he let out a loud screech. Startled, the blue girl lost her balance and was in danger of falling into the pond. Desperately flailing her arms around, she eventually managed to regain her balance, but he gulped. The camera that had been in Fuyumi's hands just moments ago was now gone. Looking down, it was like the beautiful lucidity of the water was mocking Bau-kun by showcasing the device that was sinking to the bottom of the pond. The fish seemed to provide further assistance in this endeavor by panicking and frantically fleeing from the sinking camera. Fishing it out of the water, Fuyumi checked the camera, but it wouldn't turn on anymore. Baumkuchen? His sister usually called him Bau-kun, and she most recently learned the phrase "Oni-chan." But when she got really angry, she always made sure to switch to his full name, just like their parents would do when a particularly harsh scolding was incoming. This camera was not cheap, you know? And I might have lost all the pictures I've taken so far, lamented Fuyumi, her voice a calm that was foreboding a storm. It all depended on how Bau-kun would respond, but hearing her talk about photos again, he finally snapped as well. "It's always about those dumb pictures. Can't you think of anything else for once?" cried the bird while flapping his wings to reach his sister's eye level. "Dumb pictures? Well, excuse me for making an effort to create lasting memories. But clearly, you have no interest in that, do you?" "Of course I do. That's why I'm recording everything in my book. You know that." "Oh, right. You spending time with your book is fine, but me having a camera is not? I'm doing that at the end of the day when nothing's happening. You are fiddling with that stupid thing during the day and miss out on half the stuff happening." "Oh yeah? I don't think I've missed anything." "No? Then what's this?" In one swift motion, Bau-kun pulled out the feather he had been hiding and threw it towards his sister. Bewildered, she opened one hand to let it float onto her palm. "Well, nothing to retort now, huh?" chirped the bird. However, the blue girl quickly regained her composure and continued. "So what? I've been looking for feathers as well, through the camera. You just happened to find it first. Sooner or later, I would have done the same." "Fine, then just continue what you've been doing, since you're obviously doing such a great job." "Oh, I would if I could, but someone here broke the camera." Unable to stand this argument anymore, Bau-kun flew to a tree, his back turned to his sister. Similarly, she turned her back on him and crossed her arms with a Only then did Fuyumi notice that some of the people around her were staring at her. Her face growing hotter with each passing second, she suppressed her desire to curl up and die, and instead hastily moved to another area. With the day slowly coming to a close, the two siblings set out to their final destination for the day in an awkward silence. It had been hours since their quarrel, and neither of them had spoken since then. Taking trains along the east side of Mount Fuji, they eventually reached the city of Fuji Yoshida. They had actually planned to arrive earlier in order to finish sightseeing before dusk, but now the sun was already setting, while they still had a bit of a walk ahead of them. It should have been obvious that there was no point in continuing, since it would be impossible for them to make it before nightfall, but neither of them felt like speaking up to break the silence. After walking for another 30 minutes or so, they finally arrived at the last place on the list of sites to visit. The Chureito Pagoda, a multi-story tower built on top of a hill overlooking the city. Famous for the beautiful view with the pagoda in the front and Mount Fuji in the back, this was usually a popular spot filled with tourists, but now that everything was dark, neither any people nor an amazing sight were to be seen. Still, both Fuyumi and Bau-kun spent a few moments absent-mindedly staring into the distance, when suddenly, tears. What first began as a single drop rolling down her cheek and chin, soon became a stream of tears running down Fuyumi's face. Sobbing, she sank to the ground. In the panic, the bird beside her began to run circles around her, desperately trying to find the right words suited for the situation. Eventually, he cheeped a weak, "Sorry, Fu," and took a seat on her head to try to pet her. "You know, I really look forward to this, but now it's too late," came the muffled voice of the girl as she struggled to hold back further tears. "I know. I'm so sorry, Fu. It's my fault. I lashed out on you like that after breaking your camera. I shouldn't have done that. I should have told you earlier that all that picture taking was driving me crazy, instead of scaring you to get back at you." In response, Fuyumi shook her head. Wiping some of the tears away, she whispered, It's my fault as well. I got a bit too carried away with the camera and barely paid attention to you. You even found one of my feathers, and I didn't even thank you." Opening her right hand, Fuyumi revealed the feather of azure and amber that she had been clutching this whole time. "You still held onto that? I thought you would have absorbed it hours ago," chirped her brother, surprised. "Well, I wanted to, and I've tried, but for some reason it wouldn't work like usual, as if there was some kind of block. Maybe you should try again? Now?" Maybe, but... to be honest, all that fighting and walking today made me so tired. As soon as she murmured those words, the girl slumped down and fell backwards onto the grass. Terrified, Bau-kun leapt from her head onto her face and tried to slap some sense into her. Fu? Hey, Fu? What's wrong with you? Don't forget, we haven't even had dinner yet. Holding all that anger over the day made me lose my appetite. As his sister closed her eyes, alarm bells began to ring inside the little bird's head. Dashing here and there, he frantically tried to understand what was happening to her. As the night grew deeper, it only became harder to see. But was it just his imagination that the marble of his sister's necklace was a bit darker than usual? After some careful examination of her, Bau-kun came to the reassuring conclusion that she simply fell asleep, albeit in a worrying way. Was she just as exhausted, or was there something else? While these kinds of questions were racing through his head, he made himself comfortable on his sister and soon drifted off to sleep as well. When the peculiar pair of siblings awoke, it was still dark. I guess we both fell asleep? Exclaimed Fuyumi while stretching. Well, someone just flopped over in such a worrying way that I was about to rip my feathers out. Really? I don't know what came over me. I was just so tired. But now, I feel quite refreshed. With these words, the blue-haired girl held up the feather she had been holding onto. Suddenly, the feather shone in a dazzling white light while floating towards Fuyumi's necklace. Barely a second later, it got absorbed into the golden accessory. Hehe, and this seems to work properly again as well. I guess I was just too tired yesterday? Or maybe it's because of a fight that it didn't work? Contemplated Fuyumi. I thought that your marble had a strange color yesterday, replied Bau-kun with furrowed feathers. Examining her necklace, his sister could not find anything unusual. Maybe you were just imagining things. You know, it was dark, you were probably tired and all that. I wonder, murmured Bau-kun, not looking convinced at all. For now, there was nothing more to do, but he told himself to keep this incident in mind. Eventually, his thought process was interrupted by a delighted outcry. Oni-chan, look! The first rays of light began to fall, slowly dispelling the darkness that had surrounded the area just moments ago. They heralded the beginning of a new day. The tower that had seemed so dark yesterday now appeared in its full glory of white and red, with the impressive shape of Mount Fuji rising in the back as well. Maybe it wasn't so bad what happened yesterday. Maybe we were destined to fall asleep and witness the sunrise here instead, exclaimed Fuyumi. I don't know about that, but I'm glad that we still managed to have this view. If only you could capture this moment with your camera, replied Bau-kun with an apologetic chirp. Don't worry, Oni-chan. After all, the most precious treasures of our journey aren't the mementos or even the memories we make along the way, but the feelings that remain, right?